South Africa's latest defense audit opens up with a jolt. Only 27% of our soldiers are currently fit to deploy, a number that doesn't signal a sudden collapse so much as it confirms years of warnings from insiders. Now, with more than a third of the force missing mandatory medical assessments, the SANDF has been leaning on the same small pool of healthy troops for these repeat deployments, while most of the standing force remain on the payroll but off the field. And as we've seen this year, this pressure spills straight into operations. I mean, for instance, we've learned that our troops in the DRC this year had to buy their own boots and tents, and their bulletproof vests only arrived after deployment. And so this raises a simple question here. Why do we commit to billion rand foreign peacekeeping missions when our support systems behind them clearly aren't holding up? And above all that, there's the leadership gap. I mean, Parliament says that the briefings they receive are nowhere near what's required to understand the state of these deployments. And so that breakdown in communication leaves MPs working with half the picture and makes accountability among SANDF leadership almost impossible to enforce. So some defense analysts say that the situation is still recoverable, but it requires a clear plan and new leadership that's willing to confront the scale of the decline. And so, taken together with just the sheer deterioration of our military infrastructure, and the threads point to a defense force that's been operating well below its intended strength for far longer than South Africans have been allowed to see. And we're just getting started today. Coming up next, the Great South African Retail Retreat, the overnight tariff fix that saved thousands of jobs, and the Wildcard breaking down our two-sided summit coastline. My friends, hit that like and subscribe, and let's get into it. SPAR's latest move says it all. The retailer is trying to get lighter. You see, after years of international sprawl that delivered more headaches than returns, SPAR is now in talks to sell its UK business, the final piece in a string of European retreats that already sought exit the likes of Poland and Switzerland. Now, of course, those disposals wiped out billions, but it also cleared the decks, cutting its debt nearly in half and giving the group more breathing room to double down on its local strategy. And it's worth noting that SPAR's pivot here isn't done in isolation. I mean, just this past August, Shoprite announced that it would exit both Malawi and Ghana after years of currency volatility and high import costs across the continent. It follows earlier retreats from Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and the DRC as Africa's biggest retailer doubles down on markets it can actually defend. And then we have Woolworths, who have learned a very similar lesson abroad. Its Australian Country Road Group delivered a 917 million rand write-down this year, dragging down earnings and raising fresh questions about whether these premium brands can actually match the performance of Woolies South Africa. So put together, and the pattern is unmistakable. South African retailers aren't shrinking out of fear. They're pulling back from markets where the economics no longer make sense and rather consolidating their firepower where they have their home advantage. Okay, look, ferrochrome smelter tariffs might just sound like the most boring thing I've ever said. But today, you're going to learn why this stuff actually matters. So ferrochrome is the alloy that gives stainless steel its strength and its shine, and South Africa is one of the biggest producers on Earth. Now, the problem here is that smelting eats electricity for breakfast. After a 900% surge in power prices over the past few years, 14 smelters have already closed, and the rest were lining up for retrenchments. I mean, the industry wasn't shrinking, it was imploding. So just this week, Eskom scrambled to stop the collapse. It struck a 3-month agreement with both Samancor and Glencore, while our electricity regulator reviews a temporary tariff adjustment. Now, if that relief is approved, companies will pause retrenchments and switch roughly 40% of capacity back on, giving everyone just enough breathing room to design a sustainable pricing model. And here's why you should care. Pheromone underpins thousands of jobs, billions in exports, and a chunk of South Africa's industrial base. And so this deal isn't just paperwork, it narrowly avoided an industrial blackout. And before we cruise on to our Bagel Bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, South Africa says it will not take part at next year's G20 finance track after the US declined to accredit its delegation. Now, government says that this doesn't affect SA's G20 membership, but Poland has reportedly been invited in its place. The ANC Veterans League wants to overhaul how its leaders are elected by giving every member a direct vote, a move aimed at stopping the backroom deal-making and its cash for support tactics that have reportedly plagued ANC conferences for decades. And on an international note, China's trade surplus has topped $1 trillion for the first time, powered by rising exports to Europe, Southeast Asia, and Australia as companies reroute shipments away from the US. American imports, on the other hand, plunged nearly a third under the high tariffs. And on to our Bagel Bite of the day. Let's see what you got. The question is, which country uses the currency called the forint? Is it A, Poland, B, Hungary, or C, Romania? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. Summer is upon us, and some South Africans are basically living in two parallel realities. You see, in Durban, people are floating around in water so warm, it might as well be a bath. In Cape Town, people are sprinting in and out of Clifton like they're doing cold plunge training. Same month, same coastline, two very different experiences. So what's actually going on? So the short answer is this. Durban sits on top of a warm ocean superhighway, and Cape Town sits on top of a fridge. You see, the Gullis Current, which is one of the strongest warm currents on Earth, drags a thick stream of tropical Indian Ocean water down South Africa's east coast. I mean, Durban water hits as high as 27 degrees in peak summer. Now, Cape Town's side of the coastline is fed through the Bagel Current, a cold stream of Atlantic water that moves northward from far down in the South Atlantic, where temperatures are close to polar levels. And so by the time it sweeps past the Cape, the water is still dense and icy. And so it's the reason why Clifton, Camps Bay, and Llandudno sit stubbornly around that 13 to 16 degree mark in summer, no matter how hot the day gets. And so yes, same country, same holiday season, but in December, Durban gives you Maldives and Cape Town gives you Wim Hof. And as for that Bagel Bite, the answer is Hungary. The forint has been its currency since 1946, introduced to stabilize an economy flattened by hyperinflation that was so severe that it still ranks among the worst in recorded history. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is your weekly reminder that if you do prefer your news on the go, whether you're running or driving or cold plunging at Saunders Beach, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Links to both of those are either in our description below or our bio. Hope you guys have a great day further. Be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all tomorrow for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.